First responders go above and beyond to make sure that your family is safe. But what happens when they get hurt? Is the state of Georgia effectively taking care of them as they recover? It's a question several state workers posed to our 11Alive News investigators, and Savannah Levins is uncovering gaps in the way Georgia compensates first responders injured in the line of duty. Savannah, you're joining us now, something that you all have looked into, and we're going inside this investigation.
Yeah, Faith, several first responders who live in the metro area have reached out to 11Alive News Investigates over the past few months, saying that they were injured on the job, and afterwards they felt like the state of Georgia left them high and dry.
It was just a perfect storm of situation.
It's been 9 years.
There were so many fires going on.
Since wildfires tore through North Georgia.
The fire actually burned underneath the fire breaks, underground.
9 years since Kimberly Vandewalker, a Department of Natural Resources employee, was called in to help.
Can we stop for just a second?
I need to walk around.
But her physical pain remains after the ATV she was using to fight the fire rolled, nearly taking her life.
I felt the bones in my back break and knew as it continued to roll that my back had broken.
A broken back, crushed arm, concussion, puncture wounds, and seizures, compounded with her realization that Georgia state workers' compensation only pays 2/3 of an injured worker's paycheck with no taxes taken. Was that enough to live on?
No, I mean, my salary wasn't enough to begin with. I moved into a friend's basement.
And we found Kimberly's story isn't uncommon. In 2023, Henry County Deputy Daniel Pasiadli's case caught lawmakers' attention when he suffered debilitating injuries after he was shot in the line of duty. A county fundraiser was held to cover the rest of his normal paycheck.
It means the difference between them putting food on the table.
State Senator Emmanuel Jones started asking questions, learning Georgia has an indemnification fund, which pays out to first responders injured on the job, but only if they apply.
There was other funds that he could tap into that no one knew anything about.
When 11Alive News Investigates pulled records, we found the fund has paid 6 officers injured in the line of duty since 2022.
If they know on the front end that if something happens to them, we're not going to take care of them, why would they ever want to go work as a first responder?
State Senator Brian Strickland joined Jones in sponsoring a bill named after Deputy Pasiadli, which would have the fund automatically pay out to officers injured on the job.
They're getting notice of this fund. We're expediting the process.
Have you ever heard of that fund?
No. It blows my mind to understand that that fund exists, to know that that could have helped way back when.
But even if that bill passes, we found there would still be gaps. While most first responders, including police, EMS, and firefighters, can benefit from the fund, it does not explicitly include DNR workers like Kimberly.
We probably should look at expanding that in the future for other first responders.
And as it stands now, the proposed bill would automate access to the fund for law enforcement only. Is it going to pass this session?
Oh, absolutely.
But despite unanimous support in the Senate, the bill never made it past crossover day this session.
Sometimes a bill that everybody's for can be harder to get attention on.
When your house is on fire or being threatened, by a wildfire, don't you want to know that somebody's coming? But then when they get hurt, nobody's there to help put Humpty Dumpty back together.
And like the flowers starting to grow from a once charred Georgia landscape, Kimberly knows healing can only come so fast without help.
This is bigger than me.
Wow, I mean, looking at this package, looking at this story, hearing from all these people, it makes you wonder, how in the world could this happen, right? We know that the legislative session is almost over.
Yeah.
Where do things stand now with this bill?
Well, it's interesting you ask. I actually just got off the phone with Senator Jones, who you heard from in that story, and he tells me that they were able to tack the bill language onto House Bill 105, and it looks like that bill is moving forward with unanimous support in both the House and the Senate. And Senator Jones says the governor is actually in support of that bill, so he's pretty confident that it will pass. But Faith, even if it does, the fact still stands that too few people, honestly, even know about this fund's existence to begin with.
And that bill would require injured law enforcement officers to be notified about this fund. Of course, there are so many other people who are working on the front lines. How about other departments?
Well, so in this bill, the language of this bill specifically would just be for law enforcement officers. Other first responders would not get that automatic notification under the bill language, but they do still qualify for this money. That includes firefighters, forestry commission workers, prison guards. As you heard in the story, it notably does not include DNR workers like Kimberly, but Senator Strickland tells me he is looking into amending the state code now to include DNR in the future. The Georgia Department of Admin Services, which runs that fund, also tells me that they do look at every application on a case-by-case basis. But yeah, to answer your question, Faith, this bill would automatically notify law enforcement injured in the line of duty about these funds. Everyone else would still have to apply as of right now. And there are a couple of issues with that, right? Like, first off, asking a critically injured first responder to log on and fill out an application for this money. It's like hard to imagine that that's top of their to-do list when they're in the throes of recovery. Here's what Kimberly said about that.
I can't imagine telling a police officer, you know, you were shot in the line of duty.
Fill out this form.
Not only fill out this form, but we have this fund sitting here doing nothing, you know, but instead we're just going to make you worry about life in general, you know, your home, your bills, your food, you know, especially now. I just can't even begin to fathom that.
And then second to that, there just doesn't seem to be much awareness about this fund in general. Have you ever heard of that fund?
No. I wish you could have seen my reaction in person when I read your email, and I must have read it 5 times. What did she just say to me? You know, no. It blows my mind to understand that that fund exists and is being, you know, it's being swept under the rug, I guess. It's not being utilized. Should be helping people, not helping people. That's unacceptable. That's why I wanted to do this. That's why I wanted to talk to you, because it terrifies me for them not to understand that if you go out there and you get hurt, you know, well, good luck.
Yeah, Faith, you know, you and I know very well how many stories we cover about shortages, right? In the police force and firefighters, all these state agencies saying that they're understaffed. It's a huge safety concern for communities when that happens. So I think that this is a really good point that Kimberly and these legislators bring up, that if folks don't feel like they'll be taken care of when they get hurt on the job, it's a often very dangerous job. It's no surprise they might not be, you know, jumping at those openings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, if there's no incentive, if I'm going out here and putting my life on the line just to get just over half of my pay,
Yeah.
and there is money that could help me out. I have so many other questions.
Well, I mean, and think about how little these first responders are making
Yeah.
to begin with. I mean,
Yeah.
Kimberly was very open with us when she said, I think I was making $36,000 a year at that time. My weekly paychecks were maybe $400.
Yeah.
I mean, she lost her house, she lost her car, she lost her safety egg, and that happens too often.
And I feel like in any other industry, when you have like your onboarding paperwork, you have HR that says, hey, here's all your options. And you don't have to answer this, and maybe it's a question for the people in the departments, but why don't they know about that at the top level, that when you are coming in, you're getting employed, hey, by the way, if this happens, this is available to you?
That's such a good question. I asked that very same question to the senators involved in this, and I said the same thing. I was like, how come from the top down it doesn't seem like people are being notified about this? So shouldn't the police chiefs and the fire chiefs know about the existence of this fund? And what the legislators told me was essentially no, that there was some sort of disconnect there where even the higher ups didn't know about this fund's existence. And so right now they're looking into ways to modify that to make sure that the higher ups do know, so that the existence of this fund is not some big secret, so that people don't end up in this situation like Kimberly.
Well, I'll tell you what, a lot of people know now because of your story. So thank you for digging into this and this investigation.
Thanks, Faith.
Thank you all so much for joining us. Again, we want to remind all of our viewers, 11Alive News Investigates wants to hear from you. You can reach out to Savannah or any of our team members by calling 404-873-9111 or by emailing investigates@11alive.com. Thank you so much for joining us inside 11Alive Investigates. We'll see you next time.